Growing up, I loved watching monster movies. Godzilla, King Kong, Jurassic Park, all that good stuff. Whilst they may not be my reasoning for wanting to study filmmaking and become a filmmaker, that honour goes to Clerks and Pulp Fiction. They were the ones that gave me a lot of joy and entertainment. Whilst in university, I was offered the chance to see a screening of a film from a then unknown filmmaker with a Q&A session following. In Nottingham, where I'm from, there's an annual horror film festival called Mayhem, which was curated by my tutor. So me and my uni friends brought tickets, and on a sunny October Saturday afternoon in 2010, we sat down to watch Gareth Edwards' directorial debut, Monsters.
You know, this whole thing is, we're not really making a film. Vertigo explained that to you. We're just selling, it's like Hearts of Darkness. Nobody watches Apocalypse Now anymore, they just watch Hearts of Darkness.
When the film was generally released, it didn't arrive with the thunder of a Hollywood blockbuster. There was no millions in the marketing campaign, no major studio behind it, and no recognisable stars leading the charge. And yet, Monsters became one of the most talked about science fiction films of the year. Not because of what it had, but because of what it didn't need. This is the story of how Monsters was made, an extraordinary feat of guerrilla filmmaking that challenged every rule in the book and launched the career of one of the most distinctive genre filmmakers of our time. There will also be personal sides of this film as well, as I was able to meet the director, ask him a question about the film, and his inspiration for it. Before Monsters, Gareth Edwards was primarily known for his visual effects work on TV documentaries, including BBC's docudrama Hiroshima. He wasn't a household name, but he had an eye for visuals and a deep passion for science fiction. In 2008, he made a short sci-fi film called Factory Farmed, made as part of a filmmaking contest held by the Sci-Fi London 48-Hour Film Challenge. From the outcome of that film, Vertigo Films approached him to pitch a low-budget genre film. As the short film was made on a zero budget, showing to many people that big money doesn't always mean a good film. In my experience, you can make a good film as long as you have a tight story, good actors, and can film as cheaply as possible. Edwards proposed something radically different from the norm, a road movie with monsters. The pitch was simple but intriguing. An alien-infected zone in Mexico, a cynical American photojournalist tasked with escorting his boss's daughter through it, and the looming threat of gigantic extraterrestrial creatures always present but rarely seen. It would be Cloverfield meets Before Sunrise, an emotional character drama wrapped in a sci-fi shell. The film was reportedly less than $500,000. Rather than seeing this as a limitation, Edwards saw it as an opportunity to break free from the traditional constraints of filmmaking. The idea wasn't to fake a big movie on a small budget, it was to redefine what a big movie could be. Production on Monsters was unconventional from the very beginning. There was no massive crews, no sprawling sets, no catering trucks. Instead, the film was shot with a tiny skeleton crew, often just Edwards, the sound guy, and the two lead actors, Scoot McNairy and Whitney Abel, who were actually dating in real life during the filming of that film. I've said film so many times, I'm unreal now. The team travelled across 5 countries in Central America, shooting entirely on location, often without permits. They would find real places, street markets, abandoned buildings, rivers, jungles, and insert their scenes into the world as it existed. Locals were often used as extras, improvising their lines, unaware that they were part of a science fiction film. This travelogue style method gave the film a raw, documentary-like feel. The environments felt lived in, not staged. The alien zone felt eerily plausible, precisely because Edwards used real-world decay and post-disaster imagery to represent it, and military checkpoints all helped sell the illusion. And crucially, there was no script. Not in the traditional sense anyway. The story beats were mapped out, but most of the dialogue was improvised on location, allowing the actors to respond organically to their surroundings. This added an authenticity rarely seen in genre cinema, and made the character's emotional journey feel real. Going back to the point in time when I went to the screening with the Q&A, Gareth proceeded to tell us about how some of the scenes were filmed. For example, later in the film, where Andrew and Sam see this neighbourhood flattened by a supposed alien attack, a hurricane had swept through and brought it to rubble. Shooting scenes like this shows that these monsters are rooted in the Godzilla ethos of it being these creatures are a force of nature and that the people need to endure through the attacks. Also, one of his stories was being back at Broadway cinema again after so long. He had been at the cinema back in '92 for a screening of Reservoir Dogs, and Tarantino was in attendance for that as well. It was as if things had come full circle for Gareth. Perhaps the most astounding aspect of Monsters is in the visual effects. You'd be forgiven for thinking that a film with alien creatures, fighter jets, and ruined cities had the backing of a major effects studio. But every visual effects shot in Monsters was created by Gareth Edwards himself on a standard home computer using Adobe software and 3D Studio Max.
And I happened to be living with a guy who was studying this new thing called computer animation, and it just opened my eyes basically, and it seemed like it would be the solution to everything that I was finding a problem in terms of how you make a film.
Working solo, Edwards completed over 250 effects shots. He even built many of the 3D models from scratch, sculpting the monsters and animating their movements based on footage of jellyfish, octopuses, and deep-sea creatures. Because the visual effects were added after the film had been edited, Edwards had total control over where and when the creatures would appear. He understood the power of suggestion. Less is more, and using the creatures sparingly, focusing more on atmosphere and tension than spectacle. When the monsters finally do appear in full, it's not for a traditional battle scene, but a strangely intimate moment of connection, otherworldly, beautiful, and deeply eerie. At the end of each day of shooting, the editor, Colin Goody, and the assistant, Justin Hall, would download the footage so the memory sticks could be cleared and be ready for the next day. While the new footage was being shot, the filmed footage was edited at the production team's hotel. And funny enough, after filming concluded, the crew did have over 100 hours of footage to work with. So, could you imagine if there was a 5-hour cut of this film? Oh man, I'm funny. After shooting wrapped, Edwards returned home and began the mammoth task of editing and scoring the film. He collaborated with composer John Hopkins for the ambient, haunting score that perfectly matched the film's tone. Melancholic, mysterious, and meditative. The music helped reinforce the idea that Monsters wasn't about action or horror, but about two people lost in a damaged world, slowly finding something meaningful amidst the chaos. He cut the film himself, refined the story structure, colour graded the footage, and of course, layered in all the visual effects. The process took several months of intensive solo work, with Edwards serving as editor, VFX artist, and often even the sound designer. Monsters premiered at the South by Southwest Film Festival in March 2010, where it was met with critical acclaim. Audiences were stunned by the film's technical polish, emotional depth, and how convincingly it created an entire sci-fi world on a shoestring budget. Critics praised Edwards as a bold new voice in genre filmmaking.
I think there is a possibility that some people will go along to see Monsters expecting to see a monster movie, duh,
and comparisons to District 9 and Children of Men soon followed. The film was acquired by Magnet Releasing in the US and Vertigo in the UK, and it went on to perform modestly at the box office, but enjoyed tremendous success in the home video and streaming markets. Its legacy quickly grew. Aspiring filmmakers saw Monsters as proof that you don't need millions of dollars to make a cinematic effects-driven story, you just needed a vision, creativity, and an insane work ethic.
Okay, maybe I won't get any sleep.
Perhaps the greatest achievement to Monsters' success is what happened next. Gareth Edwards was tapped to direct Legendary Pictures' Godzilla reboot in 2014, followed by Rogue One, a Star Wars story in 2016, making us really fear Darth Vader again like he had when we were younger. He went from shooting on the fly in Central America to directing some of the biggest franchises in cinematic history, with his sci-fi film The Creator also showing us that you can make a beautiful looking film on a budget half of what Disney throws into their films. Now his newest film in his CV being Jurassic World Rebirth, which I have seen and continues to show how good of a director he is. But despite the scale of those later projects, Edwards never lost his DIY spirit. Even in Rogue One, you can see the fingerprints of monsters, the sense of grounded realism, the emphasis on mood over exposition, the fascination with massive forces viewed from the ground level. In an industry dominated by pre-visualization, focus groups, and bloated budgets, Monsters remains a miracle. It's a film that sidestepped the system and proved that one person, armed with passion and technology, can create something extraordinary. Gareth Edwards didn't just make a monster movie, he made a blueprint for a new kind of independent filmmaking. Monsters reminds us that the best science fiction doesn't come from CG spectacle or jump scares, but from human stories, creative problem solving, and a willingness to embrace the unknown. In the end, Monsters isn't just about creatures from space, it's about the terrifying, beautiful, chaotic world we already live in. After the screening, we got to the Q&A session for the film. I felt brave enough to ask a question. I was given the microphone, made a cringe line about the mic being on, and asked, "What films were your biggest inspiration for this film?" Gareth is very humble and softly spoken, and said that The African Queen was one of the big inspirations. But he was also a huge fan of the Godzilla films, saying Monsters was like The African Queen meets Godzilla. In the opening, I said how Clerks and Pulp Fiction were the reasons for me wanting to be a filmmaker. While that is true, Monsters has been there in the back of my mind since I first saw it all those years ago. In the 15 years since it's been out, Gareth Edwards has gone on to bigger and brighter pastures with his filmmaking. We don't get a lot of time on this earth. When it's all over, what will we have to show for a life truly well lived? So do something that you've always wanted to do, no matter how big or small it may be. I love this film and will always be special to me, because when you're in a movie theatre surrounded by friends and loved ones, all that matters is the time we have together and the stories told on screen.